After going back and forth on this for nearly 2 years, I finally decided to review my net worth. Because money and transparency around money is a fundamental tool in how we shape our lives, I want to talk about this topic as openly and honestly as possible. I previously shared my budget with real numbers as I worked towards Fat Fire in a separate video, and seeing how much it resonated with others made me inclined to proceed with sharing my net worth in this one. Further, in a future video, I plan to also share the various side hustles I'm using to expedite my journey towards Fat Fire, and will link it once it's available. Before I jump into my net worth and the breakdown of it, I want to say that this is absolutely not a flex by any means. I just want to be completely transparent with my finances here, as I think it helps in documenting my journey towards Fat Fire and can serve as a useful benchmark and tool for others who are interested in this journey as well. Further, if you do think this video will negatively impact you in any way, please stop watching now. If you're still watching, my net worth as of December 27th, 2022 is around $482,000. If you're interested in hearing more about each of my accounts and how and why I use them, stick around as I'll be sharing those details in the rest of this video. By the end, I hope to accomplish two things. The first is a breakdown of my net worth by account, so you can have an idea of how I'm building my wealth, and two, comparing my net worth to my Fat Fire goal of $2.5 million. Alright, so let's get started. I'll break down this next section into tax advantaged and taxable accounts. As a preview, here are the various accounts I have in both of these categories. Starting with tax advantaged accounts, the first account I have is my 401k, formerly my 403b when I was still working in the hospital, which is probably my bread and butter account as it is sponsored by my employer. For those who are unfamiliar with 403bs, they are equivalent to your 401k and typically administered by employers that are non-profits. I currently have about $248,000 in this account, and my employer currently provides a generous 100% match up to $3,000, or 50% up to the max of $22,500 for 2023, which is around $11,000 of free money. As a high income earner, I try to reduce my taxable income as much as I can, so I aim to max this out every year, which as of 2022, the max contribution is $20,500, and as I mentioned, will increase to $22,500 for 2023. Although it does have a Roth option, which I did utilize a bit when I had my 403b, I've opted to stick with a non-Roth 401k going into my new job to reduce my taxable income as much as I can. Moving on, a wild card I had in 2022 when it came to tax advantage accounts was cashing out my pension plan from my former employer when I switched jobs in April of this year. I had two options here. One, which was receiving a measly $150 a month after retirement for the rest of my life, or two, cashing out as a lump sum of $89,000. Given my desire for Fat Fire, the latter made much more sense. Though, because I didn't want to take the tax hit, I opted to roll over the pension into my 401k instead of cashing it out entirely. This might sound a bit counterintuitive to those on the FIRE journey, but the tax implications just looked quite painful. Next, we have my 457, which is from my former employer, and this is another one of those employer-sponsored accounts. I don't see these accounts too often, and it's more common for individuals that work with nonprofits or the government. Currently have about $33,000 in this account. It's not too much, as I didn't really think I'd need to max it out in the past. However, as of July 2021, I began maxing out this account, as well as I had anticipated switching careers in the near term and wanted to put as much tax-deferred money in my 457 before doing so. It has the same contribution limits as the 401k or 403b, but has the benefit of being more flexible when it comes to withdrawals. Thus, I opted to keep it versus taking a full withdrawal even after leaving my employer earlier this year. The next account is my Roth IRA, which is another one of those accounts that are the backbone of any retirement strategy. Contributions to this account are done using post-tax dollars and will grow tax-free. Now, because of that, I did tinker with some meme stocks back in January 2021 since there were no penalties for trading. Note to self here, meme stocks aren't my forte. I have about $65,000 in this account. The next two tax advantage accounts that I have are a bit more niche, but it can serve great purposes depending on one's financial goals. Those accounts are my HSA and my 529. With my HSA or health savings account, it's an excellent financial vehicle because it has the triple tax benefit. Contributions are with pre-tax dollars, it grows tax-free, and if the expense is used towards medical needs, it's also tax-free. There's a limit of $38.50 a year on it for 2023, up from $36.50 in 2022, and I typically have mine set to keep $500 in cash for any healthcare needs I have, and the rest will automatically get invested. It's arguably one of the best accounts you can have because after age 65, the money you have in an HSA can be spent on medical or non-medical expenses without a tax penalty. I currently have $14.5 thousand between my Fidelity and Health Equity HSAs. The last tax advantage account I have is my 529, which is primarily an account that is meant for educational purposes, college being one of the most common. I started it 3 years before matriculating into my master's in public health program, so by the time I graduate from the program, I'd have enough money to pay off all my loans with it and be debt-free. This was 2 years ago. What's nice about this account is that the earnings from your contributions are tax-free if spent on educational purposes. It's a great option if your future plan entails more school. As of September 2022, I started part-time school again for my biomedical informatics certificate and potentially an MS in computer science, so I began to contribute to my 529 again so I can stretch my dollars a bit more. I currently have $3.1 thousand in my 529. Now the next few accounts are my taxable ones and arguably more important in pursuit of fat fires since they have little to no restrictions on withdrawals. Let's start with Robinhood. I currently have $12.6 thousand and started this account in August 2020 when the impact of the pandemic made it very attractive to invest. I originally started this as a way to replicate the S&P 500 by setting up automatic investments so I can dollar cost average or DCA into this account consistently. I don't use this account as often anymore since I prefer M1 Finance, but I still use it every now and then if I feel very strongly about a particular stock. Next is Coinbase and BlockFi. I've been investing in crypto since 2017 as I'm a firm believer in blockchain technology, but my investments were insignificant at the time. Kind of still are. In 2020, I began to believe and still believe that investment portfolios should have between 1 to 5% exposure to crypto for diversification. Unfortunately, I moved a large portion of mine over to BlockFi, which has recently gone bankrupt after the FTX issue, but also kept some in Coinbase. I think I still have maybe 3,000 in there. I'm not entirely sure after all of the volatility in the accounts. And I've actually stopped future investments into my crypto accounts 2 months ago for just other personal reasons. Eventually, I plan to resume my DCA strategy to keep crypto around the 1 to 5% exposure level. Fidelity is next, and I opened up a brokerage account with them in 2020 to tinker with their zero expense ratio total market funds that were announced in 2018. I currently have about 19.5 thousand in there and will likely make this my primary taxable account I pull the vast majority of my money given my success with the other taxable accounts, which are not very successful. To elaborate, I rather buy total market funds over individual stocks because they outperform my individual picks. And I also don't want to spend the time to research and keep up with the market. I think Fidelity is the best ideal solution because of these reasons. Next is Fundrise, and I started an account with them in 2019 as I wanted another avenue to diversify my portfolio, and because I had a bit of a surplus to invest since my expenses were extremely low when I was living in Rochester, Minnesota. If you're unfamiliar with Fundrise, it's essentially a real estate investment trust or REIT, except that it's private. By law, a large percentage of the profits in REITs are returned to shareholders in the form of dividends. I currently have about 13.1 thousand in it, and I wouldn't really recommend it unless you have a surplus of money that you want to diversify. These funds are very illiquid, and it's suggested to be held for at least 5 years, or there's going to be penalties for withdrawals. M1 Finance is another account I started after seeing a lot of YouTubers talk about it. As opposed to the users of Robinhood, who are typically riskier, M1 Finance targets the long-term investors and allows easy use of these pies to select well-rounded portfolios. Personally, I liked it as my replacement for Robinhood because it automatically allocated money into my top 100 picks based on a percentage that I elect on a consistent basis. Further, as opposed to Robinhood, it withdrew from my checking account once, whatever week or month that I set it to, versus Robinhood that trigger 100 plus withdrawals on my checkings a day. They don't do that anymore, thankfully, but I absolutely love the experience of using M1 Finance, and I currently have 16,000 in it. Wealthfront is the next account, and I started this around 2016. As mentioned earlier, I had minimal expenses in Minnesota, and also because they had an offer for free management of my account up to $10,000. That amount also increases by $5,000 each time you refer a friend, and I've referred 2 friends since I opened an account, so I get to have $20,000 of free investing. This is not money to give you, this is just the amount in your account that you contribute that they're managed for free. If it wasn't for this, I actually probably wouldn't be using Wealthfront at all because their fees are actually quite high, and I feel much more comfortable in selecting my own picks now. But the main reason why I did use them, coupled with the free investing, is because of the automatic tax loss harvesting that they offered, which is reported to be about 1 to 2% of your portfolio. I don't actively do tax loss harvesting, so this was a great option for me. I also don't contribute to this account anymore, and I currently have 15.2 thousand in this and will likely withdraw this in the future for a house down payment. The next account I have is iBonds. I created an iBonds account in 2022 with 10,000 starting. I think given how the stock market played out in 2022, this was kind of a no-brainer for me with guaranteed interest rates of 7%. I'm not certain if I'll invest another 10,000 in 2023, but we'll see what happens with inflation. All right, so based on all of these accounts, I'm about 20% of the way towards my Fat Fire goal of 2.5 million. Hopefully my progress will be expedited by some of the things I'm doing in the next few years, but I'll save that for a future video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.